Welcome to my lecture. Dear students, I am Dr. Isakki Devi, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Applications. Our course title is Programming in C++. We are going to see about principles of object-oriented programming. These are all the contents related with this topic. Basics of procedure-oriented programming, object-oriented programming paradigm, basic concepts of OOPs, benefits and applications. Basics of procedure-oriented programming. In C language, we have gone through a lot of things, lot of features, problem-solving techniques also you have gone through. The problem is viewed as the sequence of things to be done, such as reading, calculating, and printing. In C language, COBOL, Fortran, like that. We need to think about how many inputs are needed. What about the outputs? How to calculate the processing steps. So how to calculate the formulas, that is inputs, outputs, processing. The primary focus is on functions. Procedure-oriented programming basically consists of writing a list of instructions for the computer to follow and organizing these instructions into groups called as functions. So basically it contains many functions. So we need to think about what about the variables. In any language, C language or any language, first of all we need to think about what about data. What kind of information we need to collect. For example, student. Suppose if I say student. So it's related with student, roll number, name, marks, class, hobby. Like that we can think the concept related with students. So like the same, you have to develop programs. What are all the necessary variables, necessary data. What to calculate? The total, average, grade. You can calculate these kind of formulas. So in any language we need to think about input, output and processing steps. Basic necessary concepts. We will see one by one. Next we are going to see about the characteristics. Procedure-oriented programming is fully focused on algorithms. That means emphasis is on doing things. Big programs can be divided into smaller programs. So most of the functions share global data. Data move openly around the system from one function to another function. So the functions transform data from one form to another. So basically top-down approach. So what are all the requirements for a simple program? You have to think. That is analysis. Next we have to design a program. So for all these concepts, first we need to think the necessity. So the basic ideas of program we have to think. So it is mainly focused on these much characteristics in procedure oriented. But in object oriented, totally it is different. Fully focused on objects. Basic concepts of object oriented programming. Here I have to say one thing. Before going to see about C++ language, we need to know certain things related with object-oriented programming, the fundamental concept. We will see elaborately in upcoming chapters. This is fundamental idea only. Objects, classes, data abstraction and encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, dynamic binding, message passing. First we have to think about objects. What is object? Objects are the basic runtime entities in an object-oriented system. For example, a person, a place, bank account, like that. When a program is executed, the objects interact by sending messages to one another. For example, I can say customer, account. We may have the information sharing between these two. So basically the objects can be interacted with one another, right? For example, student object. So what are all the data? Name, date of birth, marks. Okay. Functions, total, average, display. So what are all the variables we needed? In C language we need to think like that. What are all the calculations? Total, average. Like the same here we have to think. Data, functions. Okay. Classes. Objects contain data and code to manipulate that data. That means a class is a collection of objects of similar types. Objects are variables of the type class. Okay, you have to define the class. You can have many number of objects. So each object is associated with the data of type class with which they are created. For example, fruit is a class. Mango, apple, orange, members of class. Okay. So next we are going to see about data abstraction and encapsulation. The wrapping up of data and function into a single unit which is called class. It is known as encapsulation. The data is not accessible to the outside world. Okay, within a class you have data function. Okay, so the insulation of the data from direct access by the program is called data hiding or information hiding. Next, abstraction. It refers to the act of representing essential features without including the background details or explanation. Okay, so we have certain abstraction. For example, size, weight, cost, function operate on these attributes. Okay. Inheritance. It is the process by which objects of one class acquired the properties of objects of another class. Actually, it provides the idea of reusability. We can add additional features to the existing class. No need to modify it. Okay, so we can derive a new class from the existing one. Okay, see this example. We have words. Okay, the general idea. Okay, so the inheritance, how inheritance comes. Two categories, flying, non-flying. So robin, swallow, penguin and kiwi. So like that we have categories. Okay, so this is a simple idea of inheritance. We have lot of types. So we will see what is class, what about the C++ program, what about objects. With lot of simple and small programs we will see elaborately later, right? Next we are going to see about polymorphism. Actually it is a Greek term. Okay, it means the ability to take more than one form. It plays an important role in allowing objects having different internal structures to share the same external interface. Simply I can say one single function name, but it performs different types of tasks. That is called function overloading. Okay. So we have different number and different types of arguments. Okay. See this example. We are going to draw a shape. Different kind of objects. Circle, box, triangle. Different number of arguments. Right? Am I right? Draw circle, box, rectangle or triangle, whatever may be. So any kind of object I can take. So instead of this box object I can say any kind of things. Okay. So circle object, box object, triangle object. Instead of this box you can have any other things. Okay. So rectangle or whatever may be. Okay. So we are going to draw circle, okay, box and triangle, or you can say square object also. Okay, so any kind of things, but different objects, but the simple idea is draw a shape, right? Next we are going to see about dynamic binding. It refers to the linking of a procedure call to the code to be executed in response to the call. That means the code associated with the given procedure call is not known until the time of the call at runtime. So very simply can say it is associated with the polymorphism and inheritance. Next we are going to see about message passing. An object-oriented program consists of a set of objects that communicate with each other. 3 simple steps we have. Creating classes, creating objects, okay, establishing communication among the objects. Okay, we will see one by one. Objects can communicate with one another. Okay, it can pass, okay, that means sending and receiving information, okay, passing the messages to one another. Okay, so basically a message for an object is a request for execution of a procedure. Okay, so a lot of things related with message passing. It involves specifying the name of the object, the name of function and the information to be sent. So object has a life cycle. Okay, so here employee, salary, the name. Okay, so we have certain object, message and information. Object has a life cycle. They can be created and destroyed. Communication with an object is feasible as long as it is alive. Okay, so you can easily understand these kind of basic object-oriented programming concepts. Next, we are going to see about object-oriented paradigm. Object-oriented programming is an approach to program organization and development that attempts to eliminate some of the pitfalls of conventional programming methods by incorporating the best of structured programming features with several powerful new concepts. Okay, so what are all the things we have gone through in the previous basic concepts? Okay, so those concepts are related with object-oriented paradigm. Okay, object-oriented programming treats data as a critical element in the program development. Okay, so it ties the data more closely to the function. Okay, and it allows decomposition of a problem into a number of entities called objects, and we have to build data and function around these objects. You just think about the student object, enough. Okay, the data of an object can be accessed only by the function associated with that object. Okay, see this organization of data and function. Object A, object B, object C, 3 objects. So here we have data and function. You can think about the student concept, student object. So we have the communication between all the objects. Okay, this is a simple idea of organization of data and function in object-oriented programming. Features of object-oriented programming. Emphasis is on data rather than procedure. In C language, we focused on procedure, here data. So programs are divided into objects. Data structures are designed such that they characterize the objects. So functions which operate on the data of an object are ties together in the data structure. Data is hidden and cannot be accessed by external function. So for example, you can say the objects may communicate with each other through function only. So data is hidden and cannot be accessed by external function. New data and functions can be easily added whenever necessary. So you can add new data also. For example, hobbies. You can add in student object. Here we have bottom-up approach. In C language, top-down. So here bottom-up. Okay. Benefits of OOPS. So we can eliminate redundant code through inheritance. Okay, so already you have class, you can add, you can derive new class with the existing one. So inheritance concept, reusability concept. So many programs, we are going to build a lot of programs. Okay, so all the modules communicate with one another, right? Okay, so we are going to save the development time and higher productivity also we have. Okay, data hiding is here. It helps the programmer to build secure program. Here, it is possible to have multiple instances of an object to coexist without any inheritance. Okay, so a lot of things related with object-oriented programming. It is easy to partition the work in a project based on objects. So the data-centered design approach here. Okay, so we are going to have small programs. Okay, normally we have to develop small programs, and we can upgrade it into a larger system also. Okay, message pausing techniques for communication between objects makes to interface descriptions with the external systems much simpler. So software complexity can be easily managed. So any language, we have the concept of complexity. Okay, so here it is easily managed. Applications of object-oriented programming. So real-time system, simulation and modeling, object-oriented databases, hypertext, hypermedia and expertext, AI and expert systems, neural networks and parallel programming, decision support and office automation systems, and a lot of engineering oriented like CAM, CAM, CAD systems like that. So these are all the applications. So basically the idea related with this chapter, okay, basically principles of object oriented programming. First we have to think what is object. So in C language fully focused on procedure, but here fully focused on object oriented. We will see elaborately, okay, what about C++ language and what kind of features, okay, what about the drawbacks in previous languages. Like that we will see one by one. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, students. We will see elaborately in other concepts. Okay, thank you, students.